It was a beautiful day, and the Kuru king Pandu decided to go hunting in the forest. Pandu spotted a stag mating with a doe. He drew his bow and shot the stag. When he went to collect his hunt, he found the injured stag on the floor. Then, astonishingly, the stag spoke to Pandu in a human voice. It revealed itself to be a sage named Kimdama, and the doe with him was his wife. They had transformed into deer to enjoy their time together in the forest. Kimdama and Pandu engaged in an intense discussion. Kimdama scolded Pandu for his actions, feeling that by taking a life, Pandu had betrayed his dharma, which is an ancient Indian concept that loosely translates to laws governing code of conduct. Pandu insisted he was innocent because it was an honest mistake. He believed he was hunting a deer. Pandu argued that according to dharma, there were no specific rules concerning the killing of an animal, suggesting that the method or condition of the animal at the time of the kill should not be of concern. Kimdama disagreed. He believed that as king, Pandu's dharma was to punish those who did not adhere to their dharma and caused harm. Instead, he was out hunting innocent and peaceful animals. Kimdama told Pandu, "You should not be punished for killing me, as you were unaware of my true identity. However, you did attack an innocent creature at its most defenseless moment. You prevented me from mating with my partner and disrupted a process that could have led to the birth of my child. For these reasons, you are guilty and you will be punished accordingly." Despite Pandu's passionate defense, Kimdama was not inclined to forgive him, and before succumbing to his wounds, he cursed Pandu. Kimdama decreed that Pandu would suffer in a state of desire. He said, "You will die when you experience longing for your partner, and she will follow you in death." In short, Pandu couldn't mate and procreate. This curse, along with the guilt of killing an innocent man, caused a great deal of pain and anguish for Pandu. He re-evaluated his life choices. He questioned his actions, looked inwards, and found that maybe he had been living recklessly. This is the background in which the story of the birth of the Pandavas, the heroes of the Mahabharata, is told. At the time, Pandu was residing in the forest with his wives. He had a passion for hunting and frequently went to hunting expeditions. Prior to his life in the forest, Pandu had returned to Hastinapura after a successful campaign where he had conquered vast territories and forged new alliances. His efforts contributed to the strengthening of the Kuru dynasty, and he had accumulated considerable wealth, which he shared amongst the members of his family and clan and also with the citizens of Hastinapura. It was around this time when he departed for the forest with his wives Kunti and Madri. What happened with Kimdama and the curse that followed had utterly shaken King Pandu. Pandu felt that maybe he had lived life a little too recklessly. He decided to give up all materialistic pleasures of life and to live a simple life of an ascetic in the forest. His wives supported him in this, and together they traveled to different places to meet many rishis and siddhas. Pandu studied under the learned men and eventually earned the title of Brahmarshi. Still, he found himself immensely saddened by the fact that he could not procreate. Pandu was worried that without sons, his life would be incomplete and he would not gain entry into heaven. When Pandu expressed to the learned rishis how much the fact that he could not have sons troubled him, they encouraged him to find a solution and have sons using any means possible within the confines of dharma. This got got Pandu thinking. He thought of his options, and one stood out very clearly. It was his wife Kunti, or Preeta. Kunti had in her possession an incredible boon granted to her by the sage Durvasu when she was a young girl. At the time, Durvasu was able to predict that in the future Preeta could have trouble expanding her family. He shared with her a mantra. He told her that she could use this mantra to summon a deity of her choice, and that deity would provide her a son. In fact, the Kuru family was very pleased when Kunti chose Pandu as her husband in her Swayamvara because it was an incredible boon and Kunti could make sure that the Kuru line continued. Pandu told Kunti that it was time they used this boon, but it was tricky. The boon sage Durvasu gave was basically the practice of Niyoga. Niyoga is, in short, an ancient Indian practice where a woman who could not have sons with her husband could have them with an eligible male with her husband's blessings. At first, Kunti refused because she was completely devoted to Pandu, but Pandu argued that it was a perfectly acceptable practice. There were a number of examples where righteous people had sons via Niyoga. In fact, he and his brothers were conceived by the same practice. Kunti pleaded with him to explore other options, but Pandu was adamant. He told her that it was her duty as his wife to provide the sons he needed to continue his line. Seeing how determined Pandu was, Kunti finally agreed. Pandu wanted Kunti to have his first son with the deity Dharma or Dharmadeva because they would have a son who would always follow Dharma. Plus, Lord Dharma's spotless reputation would also help. Soon, Kunti gave birth to their first son and heir, Yudhishthira. At the time of his birth, it was prophesied that he would be a virtuous king who would uphold Dharma above all else. Pandu rejoiced. Next, he asked Kunti to have a son who was strong because the lineage would benefit from someone with immense strength. Kunti prayed to Vayu, god of wind, who was renowned for his superior strength. From Vayu, Kunti gave birth to Vrikodara, also known as Bhimasena or Bhima. For his third son, Pandu wanted someone who had the most extraordinary qualities. He decided that they should ask Indra, who was the god of the gods and extremely powerful. His third son was named Arjuna, also known as Partha, because he was Preeta's son. It was prophesied that he would be a formidable warrior. He would bring great joy to his mother. He would protect the family and bring fame and prosperity to the Kuru lineage. Pandu could not be more pleased. Nevertheless, he got greedy for more. He approached Kunti about using her boon to have another son. This time around, Kunti put her foot down. She would not do it. With good reason too, because you see, while the practice of Niyoga was acceptable in society, there were rules about this sort of thing. One of the rules was that a woman may not have more than 3 children through Niyoga. If she did, the society would be unkind to her and her reputation would be tarnished. Around this time, Pandu's second wife, the beautiful Madri, asked Pandu if she too could bear a child for him. Madri felt belittled that Pandu didn't ask her for sons. She urged him to persuade Kunti to assist her in conceiving a child through Niyoga. Pandu asked Kunti and she agreed. Kunti guided Madri. She asked her to think of a god. Madri thought of the Ashwini twins and as a result she gave birth to twin boys, Nakula and Sahadeva. When Pandu asked Kunti to help Madri have another son, Kunti refused. Kunti said that she felt betrayed by Madri because Madri thought of a way to have 2 sons in one try. This didn't sit well with Kunti and she decided not to help Madri anymore. Pandu spent years under the weight of Kimdama's curse, striving to evade its grasp. But ultimately, he could not avoid his fate. Pandu, in a fleeting moment of vulnerability, succumbed to desire for his beautiful wife, Madri. As foretold by the curse, he met his end, and shortly after, Madri joined him in death. But with the help of Kunti's gift, Pandu had the sons and heir he desperately desired. His sons Yudhishthira, Bhimasena, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva were all endowed with remarkable traits of deities. They are collectively known as the Pandavas. And this is the story of the birth of the heroes of the great epic, the Mahabharata.